Oh, so that's some new weird thing.
Okay.
Oh, there goes Ritu. Hi, Ritu.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Susanna. Feel like it's so low.
Looking good, ladies.
Thank you. I'm exhausted though. Hi, Ritu. I see this is like the short hair gang here. Hey, Will. Hi, Wayne. Okay, so
Hey.
who am I making a host and who's a co-host?
Lawrence.
You're muted, Susanna.
I'm sorry. I was saying hello to everyone. Make me a host. You can make William a co-host. William, are you okay being a co-host?
Sure.
Hey, Will. Okay, so I'll
Hi,
make
Wayne.
I'll make
Hi,
a
Keen. Hi, Ritu. Hi, Florence.
Hello.
Hi, Keen. Wait, where am I? Make Will a co-host. Yes. And then make Susanna. Where is she? Oh, there she goes.
And
All right, you have it, guys. Have a good meeting.
Florence, I'll get the transcript of this tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well,
Great.
just send me an email because I may not remember because I'm doing like so
No,
many
that's
things.
fine. I can remind you. I just want to make sure it's getting recorded so that I can get a transcript.
That's the
all.
first thing I do. I'm so nervous about it. Even knows I'm like the first thing I do is enable transcript. You know,
That's great. Because I
because
don't
I'm
take,
so afraid that once I get it, I'll forget.
well, I don't take notes during the meetings, so
I
it's
freak
helpful.
out, you know. But no, I did it already.
All right, and thank you, Florence, as always, for
welcome.
stepping up to do all this.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
I know the office
guys-
is working so hard.
It's a little bit tough, but what can you do? You know. But you guys
Eventually
have a
we'll
good
have
meeting.
someone.
Have a good meeting, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, oh, participants. All right, let me see who is here that needs to be elevated. Why am I looking at the chat when I don't want to look at the chat? I want to look at the participants. Why am I not seeing the participants? Here they are. Okay, attendees. All right, so I need to definitely elevate Shane. I'm promoting Shane Cox. And I don't see Leilani here yet. Let me see who's attending. I want to, hi Shane, are you able to see the attendees? I want to know who I should be elevating here. I see Haley. Oh,
Yes.
Michael Levine. I will definitely.
Yes, Haley and Abby.
Okay, hold on one second. Promote to Pell and Abby Nyameki. How do you, well, she'll tell me how to pronounce the name. And
I leave Linda.
all right, hold on a second. Linda Scheimer
Yeah. And Tracy Earhart.
and Tracy
Program
Earhart.
director. She's going to be.
Let me just add Tracy, promote to panelist. I keep getting these. Okay.
I apologize if I am missing something. Abby, am I missing anybody else or Linda?
I'll tell you, I see Gail
Yes?
Fox, Jill Ryan, Madeline Rosen, Melissa R., Paul Gronsky of the West 16th Block Association, and Thomas Geruso.
I
Okay,
think we have everyone.
okay, good. I think we're still,
Oh, and Leilani is coming on.
Leilani is there. Okay, and who is from CUCS? Oh, okay, Tracy and Linda
See Abby.
and Abby.
And Abby,
Okay.
yes.
Because the last time we met with CUCS, Doug James was the COO. Uh-oh, whose dog is that? So you're all new to me. We're going to give it just 2 more minutes and then we'll start. Is Matt Bijano joining us tonight?
He's not.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
I don't know if anyone from Kassir is joining us.
Okay.
I think it might just be us.
Okay, that's fine. Hi, Leilani.
Hi, how are you, Susanna? How are you, CB2 members?
You're well. One thing to bear in mind that I'll say to our committee before we get going is that Paul's Place is going to have a community advisory board, as all shelters do. Its first meeting happens to be on a day when I can't attend. So I'll ask before the end of this meeting if there's anyone on this committee that would be willing to attend. And of course, I'm happy to give the spot on the cab in my place to anyone who's interested in taking it. So
The other person from CB2 on there is Ritu.
Ritu, right
Yeah,
here.
and she's on.
She's on. She's the still photo. Yes, Ritu Shatri.
Okay, I tried to call her a few moments ago to confirm if she'd be available.
Okay.
It's the
Yeah, I
19th.
responded to Leilani. Hi, I responded to your email and I'm definitely available and I'd love to participate.
For the
Wonderful.
19th, for the new date? Okay, sorry,
It's
I
in my
missed that.
calendar.
Perfect, good. So we're all set. CB2's covered. We're set.
Okay, terrific. So, so let's begin at 6:35. Thank you and welcome to everybody who is here to the September meeting of Community Board 2 Manhattan's Human Services Committee. We have 2 items on our agenda tonight. One is we're very happy to welcome CUCS, the Center for Urban Community Services, I think I have that acronym right, and the Department of Homeless Services / Department of Social Services of New York City to talk to us about a drop-in center in Safe Haven that finally opened on West 14th Street. We've been waiting for it for a long time. The second item on our agenda, everyone is welcome to participate. Our committee needs to talk about our annual the annual documentation. We do this every year. It is all the committees, and it is CB2's job to communicate to the city what our priorities are in terms of budget requests, and also to contribute to the statement of needs, which is a narrative document that lays out all of our interests and concerns. So we'll do that after we talk to Paul's Place, and anyone who from the public who would like to contribute to that is absolutely welcome to do so. We will then go into business session, and members of CB2 who are here tonight, even if you're not in our committee, are welcome to join our business session tonight, and we'll just sort of set some parameters for what that document will be. Okay. A lot of chit chat. We'll do a little bit of, for the purposes of the transcript, I'm gonna do a quick attendance. So I'm Susanna Aaron, I'm chair of this committee. William?
Hi there, Will Benish, committee member.
Keen? Keen Berger, you're muted, but we know you're here. Keen Berger on this committee.
Yeah.
There you
There
are.
I am. I'm Kane Berger. I'm on this committee.
Adam?
Hi, Adam Zeldin, I'm the vice chair of the committee.
Ryder?
Hi, I'm Ryder Kessler. I'm a committee member.
Wayne Kwadler?
Hi, I'm Wayne Quadler, committee member.
And a non-committee member who's a member of CB2, Michael Levine.
Hello, Michael Levine here.
Great. So I'm going to toss it to you guys to do your own introductions and to just take us through a presentation of what's going on with Paul's Place.
Okay, well, great. Hello, everyone. I know I'm a new face on the meeting, so I want to introduce myself. So my name is Haleen Olasco, and I'm the Assistant Deputy Commissioner of Intergovernmental and Legislative Affairs at the Department of Social Services. And just, of course, joined here by my colleagues, which will all introduce themselves in a moment. But just wanted to take the moment to thank you all for having us present to the committee today on the Paul's Place, Safe Haven. I know it's been a much anticipated location, and all of this couldn't have been done without the support of the community board and the community. It's been great that this location has been so well embraced. And I think that speaks to the successes that we will have at this location. So definitely wanted to just elevate that and show our appreciation to the board for being so supportive of this endeavor. And then next, I'll introduce myself to, I'll have my colleagues introduce themselves. So I'll pass it on to Leilani and then to my colleague Shane.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Leilani Irvin, Manhattan Borough Director for the Department of Social Services.
Hi, everyone, Shane Cox. I'm an assistant commissioner in the Street Homeless Solutions Unit at DHS.
Great, thank you both. And if CUCS could also introduce themselves.
I'm Tracy Earhart. I'm the program director at Paul's Place.
Hi, I'm Linda Schreiber. I'm the Deputy Chief Program Officer, and Paul's Place is one of the sites I oversee at CUCS.
Wonderful. And
Hi,
again,
everyone. Just
sorry.
one more person.
Sorry.
Hi. No, it's okay. My name's Abby Yamiche. Susanna, you were very close. I was looking forward to hearing you say the rest of that. It's a tough last name. But I am the Chief Administrative Officer for CUCS, and we are happy to be here to talk with all of you about Paul's Place. So thanks for having us.
So just a point of clarification, because up until now, all of our meetings were with Doug James, and I understand that he has left CUCS.
That's right.
So the titles that you guys have described are not the same as what was his title. Is that correct? Or has one of you actually replaced him?
No, Hadaria Morgan, who I think that some folks are familiar with. I know she's done a lot of tours. She is our new COO for CUCS. And so before that, she was our general counsel. So she's very familiar with the project. But unfortunately, she's under the weather and couldn't be here tonight.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we had identified everybody.
Yes.
So tell us, this project was a long time in coming, and tell us, where it stands at this moment.
Thank you. So I'll open the floor up to CUCS to share.
I'm actually going to have Tracy share, because Tracy is the director and is coming to us from Paul's Place right now and is in the best position to talk about where things are.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. Paul's Place is open. That's where we are right now. And it's taken a very long time to get here. We opened at the beginning of September. We're still in a ramp up phase for our safe haven. Our drop-in center is fully functioning on a daily basis. And we're busy. We are very busy on a daily basis. I can speak a little bit about, I'm not sure how familiar people are with the programs themselves, but we're basically two programs under one roof. We have a 24-bed safe haven and then a drop-in center. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the services we provide at the drop-in center are supportive case management services. We have a lot of, we're equipped to meet a lot of immediate needs on a daily basis. So we have showers, we have meals 3 times a day. We have storage, we have laundry. As I said, case management services. We do a lot of crisis intervention. The overall goal for clients on caseload is to hopefully move people toward permanent supportive housing. And then the safe haven portion of our program, as I said, is 24 beds. We have clients who are referred through the outreach teams and DHS who fill those beds. And the services, all the services that I just mentioned are also available to the safe haven clients. We just started our psychiatric services this week. So 2 days a week, we have a psychiatrist who is on site to meet with clients. We have medical services that are due to start in mid-October. So we'll be able to provide primary care services to our clients, also 2 days a week, and we'll have 5 days a week an LPN who will be on site, who will be able to help people with medication monitoring.
I want to pause there since I see you taking a pause. I just want to go over what a safe haven is. I think that people on this committee have become pretty familiar with it, but anyone who might be listening, or just explain to us the difference between what we call a shelter and a safe haven.
So safe havens are geared toward folks who, it's an alternative to shelter, and geared toward clients who may have a more difficult time in a traditional shelter setting, maybe because of mental health needs that are unmet, because of maybe medical needs that may be more serious and not well treated in a shelter setting. And trauma is another reason why people have a really difficult time in a traditional shelter setting. So our 24 beds are all in individual units. And our program is small and well staffed. So we have the ability to work more closely with people who might be experiencing all those challenges that I just mentioned.
So it has a lower, our understanding is it has a lower set of restrictions than a shelter might. People don't the regular shelter that serves most of the homeless population in the city is done through an intake center, and then people are assessed and they are assigned to a specific shelter. A safe haven, our understanding is designed to capture those who for whatever reasons have not wanted to go through intake. And so they have preferred to often remain home on the street, for lack of a more technical word.
That's right.
The outreach teams that do homeless outreach in Manhattan are the entities that will be trying to coax these people into a safe haven.
Yeah, that's right. And if I could add, I mean, just you have it right. I mean, and just around some of the rules, I mean, they're low barrier, and safe havens are really just designed for people who've been on the street for long periods of time, for street homeless. And that manifests itself through you can come and go as you please. There are no curfews. You can leave a room for up to 72 hours. There's no stay requirement. You can stay as long as you need to stay. And, everything from intake to the just general case manager is really at the client's pace. So you can come in and it can take a little while. The intake process can be drawn out if that's what the client wants, and they'll be willing to work with the client, help them stabilize, help them get used to the staff, staying inside. So all that to say is just a very flexible case management model, trauma informed, harm reduction, tend to be smaller scale settings. So just really built to attract people who've been on the streets and are resistant for a variety of reasons, or hesitant, I should say, to enter anything that's resembling a traditional shelter. And then a drop-in center a little bit, is just an alternative to a public space. It's the same thing though, low demand services. It's really allowing people to come in at their own terms. Just as a way for them to get connected to services a lot easier, remove a lot of the barriers, and it exposes them to the services and builds trust. And it's just a chance for people to come inside, get a meal, get clothing, get showers, and start the conversation and see what there is to offer.
We also work very closely with the outreach teams who refer our clients to the safe haven to make sure that there's a good collaboration around some of the challenges that have prevented people from coming inside.
So we had a conversation earlier this year with Housing Works, which was planning a similar facility for Grand Street, which was ultimately canceled. Tell me just about harm reduction and metal detectors. Will there be metal detectors for people entering the space? Will there be any questions around drugs? Will you allow people to use drugs in the facility? What are the parameters around that?
So there is a rule around no drug use in the facility. We manage that by meeting with clients if that's occurring and reminding them of the rule and asking them to take it out, to not have those substances on site. As far as our access control protocols, we do have a metal detector. Everybody has to walk through it when they come in, both safe haven and drop-in center. If the metal detector is triggered, we have a system for wanding, using a wand to determine if a person's belongings are safe in their bag. We don't confiscate anything that we find, weapons or drugs. We ask people to leave and come back without them and go through the screening process again.
I want to open this up to anyone who'd like to ask a question on our committee. At any time, just raise your hand and we'll go to them. I'll just keep asking questions until I hear, great. Let's start with Michael.
Hi, thank you so much, Susanna, and welcome to this committee again. We've heard you here before. We're delighted to have you back. I'm a neighbor of Paul's place. I live on 10th Street and 6th Avenue, and I'm curious to know about your outreach. Do you have any specific outreach in the local community, particularly some of the trouble spots we have, such as 6th Avenue at 8th Street and the northern end of Washington Square Park? Is there any concerted effort on your part for a concentrated outreach in some of these troubled locations in our community? And again, we welcome you to our neighborhood.
Thank you. Or I don't know if DHS wants.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, certainly. We have, yes, the short answer is yes, we absolutely do. CUCS actually has the contract for all of Manhattan, all of outreach in Manhattan. So they subcontract out with Goddard and Breaking Ground. But yes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hurricanes, COVID, whatever the case, outreach teams are out in Manhattan, engaging people, engaging everybody they know to be, believed to be, receive reports about being homeless, and their job, everything they do is built around connecting them with sites like Paul's Place and getting them inside. So some of the sites you mentioned are definitely areas we know, and we can certainly get into it, but those are absolutely areas where teams are going. And, they're going to be going at different times. Sometimes you're going to be going a lot in overnight. We're getting into the cold weather. There'll be a heavy focus on people who are out in the street on the overnight hours when it gets particularly cold. But yeah, they'll be engaging everybody in those areas consistently and offering them services.
And our understanding is that the budget for that has increased in the last few years, the city's budget for that, yes? Or
yeah, we've had some
COVID
budget increases around more beds and outreach, and
Thank you again. Welcome to the community.
Ryder?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming and answering our questions and for the great work. I wanted to ask a little bit about where things stand in terms of numbers. You mentioned things are ramping up, but also it's very busy. Can you tell us, like, of the 24 beds, how many are spoken for these days? What's the kind of, I know it's only been a few weeks, but does there seem to be turnover of folks, or are the beds going to fill up and be full soon? And then in terms of the drop-in center, what does busy look like? Is it a few dozen people a day, or 10 people a day, or 100, just to give us a sense of scale?
So we have filled 18 of our 24 beds. Intake is another area we need to be really flexible in. We have a lot of intakes that have been scheduled, and we have to be really flexible with time and the amount of attempts that the outreach teams need to make in order to place someone in a bed. We have managed to keep all but one of our intakes so far. One person didn't complete the intake process, and they haven't been back. For the drop-in center, we have 34 chairs. They're like lounge chairs, or kind of like the chairs that you see like in a hospital room for guests or for family. They're very similar to those chairs. So they recline. We have 34 of those in our drop-in center lounge, and they fill every night. So that's our capacity for people sleeping in the building overnight. We have I'm thinking about like our sign-in sheet and like our intakes at our admissions at the drop-in center, and we see probably between 60 and 70 people each day. We have a lot of people coming in every day, but it's very sort of, people come in for something and then they leave. They might just come for lunch and leave. It really varies a lot. There's a lot of traffic all day long.
Can I ask one follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of what differentiates someone who is one of the 18 people in the beds versus someone who might want to come and stay in the recliner, is it like first come, first served, or it's the people who made it into the bed as someone with a higher need, or who seems more likely to be a candidate for long-term supportive housing, who's like farther along towards some next step? What's the triaging like?
So we safe haven clients, again, are placed by are referred by outreach teams directly, and they stay. They can come and go as they please, but they stay. They have that bed secured every night. And then the drop-in center clients, the chairs are first come, first serve. So 2 separate programs, different locations in the building, and the drop-in center, not beds. They don't have bed. They're just the lounge chairs, and the chairs are not assigned specifically to one individual. So if a person leaves, they're gone for a period of time, someone else comes in and that chair is vacant, they're able to be in that chair.
But is everyone who's in that chair wishing that they could be in one of those beds?
I would say that many are, yes.
So and I should just note, part of the drop-in centers is kind of a first step to just engage people. So if people are coming in consistently, then by all means, we'd find them a place within our system. I mean, sometimes we have clients who like the drop-in centers, like as Tracy mentioned, they like the ability to come and go. Even though they can come and go as they please in a safe haven, they may not want to be as connected to services. They might just want to come in, go all night. So they like the flexibility. So really a drop-in center is just that, somewhere for people to come in, get away from the elements, get connected to services. And if it looks like they really do want to get connected and there's going to be, then we'll by all means connect them to the services.
And is there a peak time? I mean, is there a part of your services that has already revealed itself as being the most popular? Perhaps the overnight lounge chair, perhaps a meal, perhaps the showers?
Meal times are quite busy. We definitely see an increase of people coming in during meal times. And like I said, the chairs are filled every night.
Ritu?
Hi. So I have a mental health questions here. I have 3 of them. Number 1, is there a different threshold in terms of intake process for the chairs versus the beds? 2, what portion do you think or do you anticipate will have of your clients will have mental health issues? And 3, are you coordinating with the police precincts so that if there is an emergency call on a street somewhere, that you will be able to help and participate?
Mm-hmm. So
that's not too many.
And let me see if I can remember. In answer to the first question.
Okay, so the first one is intake.
Two separate programs again. So intake process completely different. People can just walk into the drop-in center. We have a very brief admission process for people who have never been to the drop-in center before, which gives us as much information as they will provide, as they choose to provide to us, but it's very basic stuff. And an introduction to the services that we have and to show people around. Like, it's a really simple process. And
do they have to sign any kind of release of information or anything like that?
So if they want to participate in services beyond just coming in and grabbing a meal or having a shower or staying in a chair for a night, we would ask them to sign a consent form so that we can help to coordinate care. That would mean probably that they're assigned to caseload. So there's a process of, we look at people, how frequently they're coming, what kinds of services they're engaging in on a daily basis. And then we approach them about their interest in being assigned to a specific case manager who they would be able to go to for, more regular support, and who would help them with the housing process. So the safe haven is a little bit different. When we receive an intake from an outreach team or a referral from an outreach team, we conduct an intake that is more thorough and takes a little bit longer, but we're really flexible with how long that takes. It could be, if a person can't sit through that.
Would there be like a diagnostic assessment?
Yes, but not necessarily on the first meeting.
Okay.
We also have a psychiatrist who is here on site and can help us with those assessments as well. I'm an LCSW. All of our management team are clinical social workers, and we have licensed LMSWs also on our team. So yes, in answer to that, I hope I answered the first question.
Yep, you did. The second question was with regards to, do you anticipate, do you have an idea in terms of when you were creating this place, Paul's Place, what portion of the population you would receive would need mental health services?
That's a good question. It is most in our experience so far. As far I couldn't nail down a number for you, but
okay. Well, that's helpful to understand. And then the third question was just, are you coordinating with the police precincts?
Yes, we are. And I've been in contact just recently with with an community officer from precinct. We're setting up a meeting next week to just sort of talk about some of the incidents that we've encountered and the partnership so far with the 6th precinct. It's been going really well. When we've needed them, they've been really great. And we've had also 2 transit police officers who have visited our program and just wanting to know more about what we do and referring people who they're finding in the subway. So that is in development and a really important part of our community collaboration for sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Adam?
Thank you. I've got sort of 3 questions. First about sort of the environment itself, and then second about capacity. First, with the environment, we keep hearing this term like lounge chair, and I'm lucky I've never had to sleep in a hospital lounge chair. Can you just describe this to me? Does it lie all the way flat? Is it like a lazy boy? Can you just let me know, like, physically what the drop-in center chairs are like?
It kind of, it does not go all the way flat. It kind of is like a lazy boy. It has like a footrest that comes up when you push the chair back so that people can, and the reason for that is we really wanted people, a lot of people that we see have issues with their feet and diabetes, chronic conditions that raising their feet up is really helpful. So
is it a regulatory thing? Like, can we not say bed? Can we not have beds?
we can, yeah. So drop-in centers aren't allowed to have beds. It's not
Got it. Got it.
I should note, the point isn't that people sleep in chairs. It's just, again, that 24-hour sense of just a place for people to go 24 hours a day, and knowing people are going to come in and may choose to stay there overnight. The sense is, rather than just giving them a regular chair, we probably know they're going to sleep a little bit. They're going to want to be more comfortable. They have recliners. So that's sort of, again, to drop in. Yeah, it's not that we want that in lieu of a bed. It's just
no, that makes sense. It still just seems like sort of a regulatory hurdle that, like, outside in, I'm thinking, if I'm in that situation and I need to drop in and it's overnight and I want to sleep, like, I want to sleep in a bed. Like, I don't know, I imagine my colleagues would feel the same way. I imagine most people who are dropping in would feel the same way. So, like, to me, that just seems like sort of a regulatory construct that we may want to rework. The second question that I have.
Can I just say one more thing?
If people still want a bed, we can by all means get people beds and get them connected with an outreach team as well. So
that's one of our first questions. Yeah. When someone comes in, we ask them if they have a shelter bed, if they have a shelter bed assignment, and if they're willing to go back there. A lot of times people say that they don't want to go back to the shelter that they have a bed in. So if they do, then we would coordinate with the shelter, with the case manager assigned there, and we would help the person get back to the bed for the night. And then they would be welcome to come back and receive services. We would, again, like, collaborate with the case manager at the shelter, and make sure that we're filling any gaps, but not duplicating services. Another option for people who use the drop-in center is a Respite Bed. That's another part of our program that we're working on ramping up right now. So Respite Beds are volunteer-run programs, oftentimes out of a church or community center, with a limited number of beds. So again, a small shelter-like setting that is a good option or a good alternative if someone is not willing to return to go to a traditional shelter and doesn't have a safe haven bed, and maybe the drop-in center is not the best. It's not the best. We want people to sleep in beds as much as possible.
No, I think that makes sense. I think the reality is, there's a set of circumstances where someone may have access to a bed in a shelter, but they're still choosing to come to the drop-in center to sleep overnight. And in that case, we're still failing to give them a bed. Like, that's, I don't know, that's the way that I see it. I appreciate all the information you gave us, but that's still a scenario that seems to be taking place. The second question that I had, the second kind of set of questions I had, was around capacity. My recollection was there were going to be 70 recliner style lounge chairs, and that the capacity for the drop-in center would be 75 people. But it sounds like the capacity has been reduced. Is that
so? I think you might be referring to caseload, and our caseload capacity is 70 for the drop-in center. So that would mean that 70 people could stay overnight. We have 34 chairs, and the goal is to refer half of our caseload, people that are coming using drop-in center services and assigned to a case manager, to refer them to respite or shelter beds each night, because we only have the 34 chairs.
I think Adam, the 24 safe haven spots was always 24.
Okay,
That's okay.
Thank you.
Keen?
Yes, I'm the moderator of Judson Church, and we're all very concerned about the people being bussed in from Texas. The mutual aid people or the migrants. Is that a whole different kind of population, or do you also get some of those people? You know, we've heard that they're being sent to shelters and they don't want to be in shelters. That we've heard all kinds of stuff, but I wonder what the truth is.
Yes, so I can speak to that a bit. So for anything dealing with asylum seekers that are coming to New York City from the border, there is a larger process that's currently going on through the city, where once they come in from Port Authority, they are going through intake, and then they are going through either 30th Street intake or through PATH and being assigned a location. So it is separate and apart from these locations that we're discussing.
And the tents, they're going to tents, is that true?
So the tents, that is still being worked out right now. That is something that is actually being handled not by DSS, but by the by NYSEM, the New York City Emergency Management Office. So they're currently managing that right now. That is pretty much serving as a primary intake, or primary assessment rather, where we're trying to identify whether folks that are coming from the border are either one, seeking shelter within a DHS system, or if they're trying to be reunited with family or going elsewhere. So that is where that first stop is going to be right now. But again, NYSEM is leading that effort.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Wayne?
Hi, so I just have another capacity question. So there's 34 of the lounge chairs. What's your population for mealtime? How many can you serve, or are you serving so far?
So we have, each meal time is 2 hours long, and we separated it into half an hour increments, and we can seat 24 people at a time in our dining room. So we are equipped to serve 96
100, yeah.
at each meal time.
And are you seeing that so far?
Yes.
Wow.
For every meal.
And what happens with folks who are there like lines of people who don't get in, or?
I'm sorry, I want to just make a correction in the numbers that I just said. We also have the safe haven. So we actually serve 96 plus 24 meals every day. And we make sure that the safe haven clients who are staying with us all the time have a meal reserved for them for each meal. And are we running out of food? We have not had, we haven't had an issue with people that being upset or not being able to eat. If we did, we would refer people. We have the Salvation Army next door. We would refer people to other resources for food if we were to run out.
Okay.
But you haven't had to turn people away yet.
We haven't had to do that yet.
Great.
Just another thing. I'm in my day job, I'm with the Lenox Health Greenwich Village Hospital around the corner. So we would love to connect and work together with you guys.
That's great. We reached out and established linkages a year ago when we were first.
Yes, that was with me.
Yes, yes. I thought your name looked familiar. Yes, we will touch base very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Tracy, I'm going to guess we can get all of your contacts through Leilani or through Matt Vijana, and we can do all that afterwards. Will?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all again. And wanted to thank you all for allowing me to do the tour a couple weeks ago before you guys opened. And it was great to see everything in person. I just wanted to ask, I know you guys built a really nice outdoor space. I'm curious to see if that's been getting use. Have you had any issue with, people smoking in the front instead of going back there? Or have there been any sort of issues with the surrounding residents to this point? Or does it seem to be going well with that outdoor space?
So we have not been able to open the terrace in the back yet, because it's not fully equipped to be opened. We're waiting on some benches and tables that are going to go back there. There's also a plan for smoke filters that we don't have yet. And there's an awning that needs to be installed before we can open the terrace. And we wanted to do all of that stuff out of respect for the neighbors that are in the back and making sure that we're managing the smoke well and that it's an area that is equipped to have people on it. So we haven't opened that yet. That is coming though very soon, in the next couple of weeks probably. As far as smoking in the front of the building, our security staff are really vigilant about asking people to not stand in front of the building and monitoring that area really well. We have security cameras that look either east and west out in the front of the building, so they can easily monitor from the security booth right inside the front door. It's all windows in the front. I'm sure that you've seen if you walked by, so it's very easy to see what's going out in front of the building. And we're really making an effort to make sure that people are not hanging out right in front of the building. And I think we've been pretty successful at that. We definitely need to redirect people, but so far I think we've been pretty successful with that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought that the terrace looked super nice, so I'm curious to see how many people take advantage of it and once it opens. So,
a point about the neighbors, we've always been told that you guys would provide a number that anyone who has any issues could call 24/7 and speak to an actual person. Can you put that into the chat? And then I'll ask you just to say it out loud for any of our attendees who'd like to note it, and that way it'll also be in the transcript. I just think that's a very useful resource and will prevent people from having to first call the community board or 311 before they actually get to you guys.
Right.
Ryder.
Thanks. Yeah, so I want to say, like, it sounds like there's a lot of demand for this service model, which is great, but that maybe there isn't quite enough supply. And I think that's a little bit of what Adam was getting at, frustration that there isn't more available space for people to have a humane, dignified, low threshold, respectful experience that they're not getting at a congregate shelter, where it seems not quite the same level of demand from this population. So, I have a couple of questions. One is more straightforward and one is maybe harder to answer. The straightforward one is kind of like, what is the expectation? I know people in the safe haven can stay there for as long as they like, and that's one of the attractive things about it, but also that those people are potentially candidates for long-term supportive housing. So do you have an expected length of tenure? And I say that not because I think we should be pushing people out, but because it's a question of when is that bed going to be open again for someone new who's maybe at the start of the process to get to the long-term supportive housing. So that's question one, just kind of like, what do you expect the median or kind of average length of stay to be in the safe haven before someone moves on to longer term supportive housing? And then the second question is kind of just like, what can we do as a committee and a board to expand the number of safe havens and drop-in centers in our community district? Yeah.
So in answer to your first question, I think a reasonable amount of time, and again, this really varies person to person, and but as far as placing a person into supportive housing, 6 to 9 months is, I think, a good reasonable estimate. As far as what we could do to expand the number of safe havens, I don't think that is a question that I can answer.
I can add something to that. I think this process is actually a really helpful process, and to the extent that it can be mirrored with other community boards, I think people have questions and concerns, and they want safe communities, but they also want humane services for folks living on the street. And I think that it's really up to organizations like ours, in partnership with DHS and then in partnership with communities, to really provide the information and education, address questions and concerns. But also we all have to sort of push ourselves, really, right? There's some amount of discomfort in pushing ourselves around addressing homelessness. And I think communities can really come together to do that. And to the extent that you all can talk with other community boards about the experience of working with organizations, and can sort of be ambassadors, right, for this kind of work. That's what matters, right? We go to meetings like this and we talk about what we do. We know what we do because we do it every day. And it means that you guys have to trust that we're going to do a good job in your community and that we're going to work together in partnership. And so I would say to the extent that we could sort of be messengers for this model across the city, that it can work, it can be effective, it can be humane, and that we can create resources for folks who are living on the street. And moving into permanent housing, honestly, is the end goal. It really is the end goal, is to move into permanent housing. And that's, for CUCS, that's our focus. This is in our first safe haven. So we're familiar with, as you all know, how to do this service and what works. And that is our goal with anything that we do.
Is it fair to note that this model is more expensive for DHS and DSS than large congregate shelters? Is this an expensive model of care?
I mean, they vary so much. I think I'd have to look into that. We have to dig into it a little bit to see. I think there's a lot of factors and depends on where and what exactly the model is. But
okay,
it's an effective model, nonetheless. So, and we appreciate the support.
I'd like to open it up to anyone from the public who'd like to ask questions. I see that Gail Fox is there. Oh, there she is. I'm going to let her ask a question. Okay, Gail, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Welcome. I've been looking forward to your opening. And I too was under the impression that there were going to be more beds and chairs than you said. So perhaps you could address future growth. The other, I had the question also about your developing relationships with the local police precincts. You border on the 13th and the 10th as well as the 6th. And, I don't know if you wait for them or if you outreach. I guess what I'm saying, how do you reach out? And again, welcome and good luck.
Thank you. I think maybe Abby could speak more to the question regarding growth. But as far as our relationship with precincts, the 6th precinct is who is responding to us right now. I think that's where we're situated. So we are trying to cultivate that relationship first. I'm not sure that would ever respond to us. I don't think so.
And this, the 6th, this falls in the 6th catchment area. And Councilman Botch's office has been really helpful in ensuring that we're connected as well. They've been very, a great player in ensuring that we're all connected with the precincts that covers this particular area. We've done a number of walkthroughs with the 6th precinct in this district to observe different hotspot areas in general with some challenging street homeless locations. And so we're definitely connected, and this falls in the 6th catchment.
Also, Gail, I by email, you asked a question about if you see someone on the street and they would like money to go to Staten Island or whatever, they're asking for help. What's the best way to refer them here? And I suppose one answer we've heard, which is the Manhattan Outreach Consortium, you hope is getting to many of these people. But is there a way that you guys can suggest any one of us on the street to be able to help direct people to services?
You can just point them in our direction or bring them to the door. So at the drop-in center, there is no real process for referral. You walk in, and if you are the only qualifying characteristic is that you're homeless to receive any service.
Sorry. Give me 1 second. Let's go to Paul Gronsky.
Hi, my name is Paul, and I represent the 100 West 16th Street Block Association, which is only 2 blocks away from the center here. And I was really disappointed by the response to that question about the precinct. You know, it looks like you guys are really clearly recognizing the lines, the political lines that get drawn. The homeless don't recognize those lines. We here in South Chelsea, merely across the street from Paul's place, are inundated with the homeless up here. And yet you're telling us that your catchment area is south of 14th Street. This is really crushingly disappointing to us. And at our recent precinct council meeting, they said the 13th precinct council said they had no idea you guys were even opening up. They had never heard of Paul's place. They were clueless about this. This is really, really disappointing to us here in South Chelsea, who are faced with homeless on our block continually.
I think
so. I'm hearing two different things.
Yeah.
It seems to me like there's a question of the resource of NYPD when there is an issue, and the center is seeking help from the NYPD. And I think what you're describing to me sounds slightly different, which is if you see someone on the street in South Chelsea outside the catchment area of the 6th precinct, is the NYPD there aware of Paul's place, and can they use that as a resource? And maybe that's just a question, even though the 6th precinct is your catchment area, maybe it would it might be a good idea to speak to the nearby precincts so that they know that you exist.
I think maybe it also would be helpful just to understand jurisdiction-wise that although this is outside of the precinct you referenced, catchment does not mean that we aren't engaged with the precincts. So maybe it'd be helpful, maybe Shane, if we can explain and I don't want to pull too much time away, but we have contracted street homeless outreach providers in different parts of the borough, the island of Manhattan. And those teams are oftentimes doing joint coordination outreach efforts with all of the precincts. So maybe that'll just be helpful for us to expound on. Maybe that answers.
We have outreach teams who cover it, and clients, anyone can go to the drop-in center. They do not have to be from a specific catchment area. They do not have to be from 14th Street or below or nearby. So that's also sort of the issue.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is Mr. Gronsky is just alarmed that the precinct in his area wasn't aware of it. That's a pretty simple, phone call to the various precincts, even though you're not their catchment area. But just to know that exists as a resource, I think would be helpful for residents there. Are there other questions from?
More.
I'm sorry, what?
More.
More what?
I had a couple more questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So 13th precinct is part of it, but it's also, it would have been nice for a little reach out to the immediate. Here we go, catchment area again, to the immediate geographic neighborhood of Paul's place, to let some of the local organizations know what it is you're doing. They've gotten been offered a tour of the facility before you opened up. I kept reaching out to find out when you were going to open, and I kept being told and on and on and on. And now all of a sudden you're open and nothing.
Yeah,
but that's disappointing. Again, it feels like this is a community board 2 effort, and will be to us community board 4. I'm sorry, that's how it feels. Okay.
Yeah, no, I just want to say one thing, Paul. I mean, the outreach that I saw a lot of actually very muscular outreach on the part of Corey Johnson's and then Eric Botcher's office. I can't speak to exactly who they reached out to or not, but there were many, many meetings, big meetings, with all kinds of constituents. So I'm sorry that you weren't aware of those. And I have no idea how those operations were conducted, but there was outreach, at least to some extent, I guess not to you, but.
Okay, I have one
anyway,
last.
thank you. Okay,
one
yeah, go
issue.
ahead.
One last one. So, and you talked about it just briefly regarding the smoking, but I was concerned about it regarding the drugs. You said if people are using drugs in the facility, they're going to be told they have to leave. Well, if they leave, are they going to end up in the street on 14th Street or in the immediate neighborhood? And this is concerning to us. And by the way, I want you to know that it sounds like I'm critical here. I really love the fact that you came to this neighborhood, and I've been telling people about it and trying to explain to people what's going on here. But with my limited knowledge resource, because I haven't been able to get involved in any of this, it's been hard for me to explain it to people. But,
Well, Paul, I think that you're a part of the CAB. I think I spoke with you a little earlier today.
well, that's going forward.
Yeah, so I'm happy that you're a part of the CAB because you'll be a part of the, cohort that'll definitely be liaisoning and communicating directly with the site, as well as DHS, who participates in that. The 6th precinct also will be participating in that. So I think that's actually a great avenue and a channel, a space for us to all kind of regroup under that umbrella. To ensure that we're staying engaged and in touch. The purpose of this meeting, actually, because CUCS has come several times to Community Board 2 to talk about this project, was to ensure that everyone knew that they're open in community and how community members can utilize this site as a resource, as well as, to share imperative information about the services on site and site contacts. So that was the vision and the goal. Obviously, timelines on when site opened and when committee meets wasn't necessarily aligned, but that's just so that we're all clear, this was the purpose of us returning back to come to present and speak on the project now that it is open and live. And I'm sorry that there may have been some slip of miscommunication not given directly to you, Paul, but I know that there has been extensive community engagement around this project. But I'm happy to continue to work with you as well as UCS with you through the CAB.
You've used the acronym of the CAB. Some of us are very familiar with that process. Can you just explain that a little bit to those of us who are not so familiar? What does it stand for? And what does it do? And blah, blah, blah.
Sure. So a community advisory board is the acronym of a CAB. It's a community advisory board that's comprised of different stakeholders that also involves elected official representatives, the local precinct, and anyone who's showed really interest in wanting to be supportive and engage with this particular site. CABs are held on a quarterly basis every 3 months, and it's a space, a channel of a space for stakeholders to flag if there's any issues or concerns happening or occurring on a block in real time. It's an opportunity for folks to elevate and raise those concerns in that forum. But in the event that there's issues happening before we meet, the purpose of us having these pre-calls that I made earlier and email communications you all received from me is to be connected to the operator CUCS. So everyone should have the general desk line number, that's a 24-hour line, and have the contacts of staff on site as well as me to flag issues in real time should they occur. But the CAB is a space for folks to kind of galvanize and organize ourselves to get an understanding of how the site is being operated, managed, what type of creative ways community members can offer support to our clients. So a lot of our CABs that are successful, we have community board members or elected official offices or just stakeholders who may come up with amazing ideas on how we can engage our residents. Maybe it be a job fair or workshop a resume workshop or cool activity, a donation drive. That's the space where we can be creative to figure out how to foster positive relationships with the community and our residents. And the goal really is to help ensure that our residents feel integrated and a part of community. I think that's really what we try to look for in the space of the Community Advisory Board. So that's really the goal. And it's also just to ensure that there's always, some communication happening with stakeholders that live in the area and the block, the voices of the community we look for to be a part of the CAB. And so we have that set. Thank you to the community board that help us identify people to be a part of the CAB. All the elected official offices also help us identify who would be great voices to be a part of the CAB. So that's been solidified and finalized, and we look forward to meet everyone virtually on the 19th. That's a part of that.
Thank you. Also, I'm looking at a question that Gail Fox posed in the chat, and thank you for responding to her. But it raises something that I think is helpful for people to know. Gail describes, what do you do if I don't feel comfortable approaching a homeless person who has a sign saying I need $50 to go to a shelter? What is a normal person supposed to do if you don't want to engage, but you want to help that person? I think we've been told in the past that it's useful to call 311.
311 is the best way. I mean, for homeless outreach, it's the most effective way. That report, you say there's a homeless person in need of assistance, that report will go directly to one of the outreach teams, one of CUCS's outreach teams in Manhattan, and they will get that in real time and respond.
And let it be clear, that's not the same as calling 911.
Yes,
911, you call them if there's something dangerous happening. If you want to help someone who is not, you're not in a dangerous situation, you call 311, or you download the app, for the 311 app, and then you don't have to wait on hold. So that should be a resource to everybody. Let me just see. Oh, Michael Levine has a question.
Yes, thank you. One follow-up question on community engagement. You mentioned engagement with the residents, which is excellent, and your continuing efforts. You didn't mention the businesses in the community. We are very rich in business improvement districts on 6th Avenue and on 14th Street. Have you reached out to the BIDs to get them involved in your efforts and to make sure that they know you exist and to find out if they have ideas as to how to deal with homelessness on the streets? They are very familiar with what happens on the streets during the day and at night, and they could be an excellent addition to your community outreach effort. So have you reached out to the BIDs, and do you plan to do so in the future?
I have not reached out to the BIDs yet, but I am open to suggestions for ways to become better connected within the community. I can share with you the organizations that we have worked to connect with so far. And again, we've been open 4 weeks. So we have a lot more work to get ourselves rooted here and in close communication with other organizations in the neighborhood. But Xavier Mission is one of the organizations that we've connected with, the Center, Lenox Healthplex, as we mentioned earlier, Salvation Army, which is on our same street, Church of the Village, places that are we will likely share clients with. So that's all a work in progress, and I'm really open to other organizations that we should connect with.
So I would offer you should connect with the Meatpacking BID and with the Village Alliance, which is the bid for the greater part of Greenwich Village.
And the 14th Street Partnership.
Oh, is that the Union Square partnership?
That's the Union Square bid.
We have a meeting next week, actually, the Union Square Partnership. So we have.
Great.
Susanna, could you share those contacts, and I can
Yes, I'll
circulate
share
that
them
to
with you later. I mean,
CCS?
obviously, you can find them online, but I will certainly do that.
Thank you.
You know, also our community board office will certainly know those. I don't see any further questions. Does anyone else want to say or ask anything else on this topic?
Leilani, I can send you a contact for the meatpacking bid for the executive director.
Yeah,
Thank
Jeffrey
you.
LaFrancois. I also want to say aloud a resource that Haley shared with us, which is the phone number of Paul's Place. This will be on the transcript, and anyone who's listening can write this down if you haven't seen it in the chat. It is 332-895-6860, and that number is live 24/7, and you'll get a person, not a phone tree. Right? That's right? Okay. Again, thank you guys so much for coming to us. We really look forward to catching up with you again, maybe in about 6 months, to see how things are going, to see how the community is responding to you, and to see your success and what you can tell us about the homeless population to inform our work. if nothing else, I'll just say goodnight to you guys, and we'll continue with the other part of our meeting.
Thank you so
Thank
much for the
you.
support.
Thank you
for
very
having
much
us.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you all
good
so
evening.
much for coming and for answering our many questions.
Thanks for having us. Have a good
Okay.
evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So our committee, and anyone from the public who'd like to weigh in, our committee knows this, but I'll make sure that the public knows this too. We, every year at Community Board 2, it's on our website, we post a list, a statement of needs, which is a narrative about our district and what our needs and interests are. We also every year have a meeting. Oh God, it's really only us now. There's Nicole Barth is from Brad's office, and I don't know Ms. Smith. Anyway, we have a meeting where we make requests of the city budget, and then Community Board 2 takes all the requests from the different committees and prioritizes them. We have a certain number of requests we can make. So I shared stuff with you guys, and I just wanted to go through it. I don't know if I should be sharing my screen. Let me know, what do you think would be helpful? When it comes to, well, let's do the first thing, which I think is the easiest, budget requests. We don't usually have a lot of budget requests, and I'm not sure that we need to. I don't feel like we are, DHS relies not so much on discretionary funds as it does on contracts. And I can't imagine what capital requests we would have, but maybe I'm being stupid. So if you guys can think of anything we should be asking for, let me know. Let me look for the document of 2023 and see if I can share that. I'm really lame at this. And everyone who wants to can unmute yourself and just talk. It's just a really small group of us.
The one thing I'll say on the funding side, I remember Darren Block from Greenwich House talking about this like supplementary funding that was provided to a steering committee of service providers for augmented Washington Square outreach.
Yes.
And that was like a temporary thing. So that seems like potentially a funding request to
Absolutely
continue that same level of outreach.
You know what? That's really smart. Let's do this. Let me go through the district needs statement, and let's look at that, because we can look at what needs to be pulled from it, what needs to be added to it, and which of those have a second preface, and which of those might have budgetary implications. Sorry, I should be more adept at this. I know I'm being pretty lame. Okay, healthcare. How do I share this?
Share screen on the bottom.
I need a person to, okay, multiple panelists can, no, one panelist can share at a time, but it's not sharing it. Let's see. Share screen. Oh, okay. Basic advanced files. Okay, it's not, I don't seem to have a file that I can share.
So what you should do is just open up the file you would like us to see on your screen, on your desktop.
Yeah.
Or your laptop, and then go to share screen, the green arrow.
Yeah.
And then you'll see the various documents that are open on your laptop or on your screen, on your desktop. And just go to the one that you would like to share with us.
I can do it, Susanna.
All right, you do it, because I'm freaking dope, and it's not showing me my files. It's just showing up. Bill, thank you so much. Okay, let's scroll ahead. We're going to scroll down to where you should see my highlighting on page, let's see.
This is the
2023.
Yeah.
It's the 2023 Statement of District Needs, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, page 6. If you got this from me, it has highlighting. If not, you have to just go down.
There's social services highlighted.
Okay, good. Okay. So let's see what we
That's
put.
education, though.
Yeah, we're going to skip past the education. Item number C is seniors. And that's where it starts to become us. And it is highlighted. Okay, great. Okay. So the first item that we supported was the neighbor network. I don't know if you guys remember what this is. This was this thing that Greenwich House started during COVID, and it was that Darren actually came and talked to us about it recently. It's sort of defunct. The idea of it was to create a kind of a phone tree so that all the seniors in the catchment area were connected to services. And
By the way, they did do that. They tried contacting my mother, and it's really great.
Yeah, I was one of the volunteers for it. But they did that, and they had a certain amount of fun. When we met with Greenwich House to ask about, lessons learned from it, it wasn't cheap to do. And yet I could see it being very valuable. So if we think that it's something that's valuable, we can certainly write some language in it that says, even though it's sort of defunct, we could see, usefulness for it, whether it's our community district or citywide. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm disinclined to advocate for it, given that Greenwich House reported that the engagement from the people they were calling had really declined, and that it wasn't that they were deprioritizing it because of an assessment of its utility to the end user. So I don't think we need to push it if they're not pushing it.
How does anybody else feel about this? Everyone agree with Ryder? Speak up, babies. Okay, that's fine. That works for me. I'm gonna move on.
Works for me too. You want me to speak up and say yes, Ryder?
Yeah, I mean, I just want, if we were in a room, this would be so much easier, but we're not. So let's just unmute ourselves and just chat.
Yeah.
So Ryder, I'm fine with Ryder's feeling about it. I think it sounded to me like it was really expensive. It seems like something that's a really great idea, but that should be citywide, not just in our community district. And yeah. Okay, I'm going down the line. Visiting neighbors, we haven't had them in a long time. They are a small not-for-profit. They don't get any discretionary, they don't get any contract. They don't have a contract. They've been surviving with some discretionary funds. And we've advocated in the past that they get a contract. Should we continue to do that?
How useful are they?
That's such a fair question. I don't know how to gauge that. I mean, Greenwich House has spoken in support of them, but that might also be just a feeling that they need to, support a complementary organization.
I had some experience volunteering with them during the pandemic, but and obviously they were hugely useful during the pandemic. We brought food and stuff to people who, didn't feel safe going out of their apartment. And I still think there's a use for that for those who aren't necessarily mobile. I know there was sort of a social aspect as well, which they had to kind of put on pause during the pandemic. Unfortunately, I've gotten so busy now after, as things have opened back up, I haven't been able to stay in touch as much. So I'm not sure if they've reinstituted sort of the social programs, but I assume they have.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we don't know what their metrics are. And I think that your anecdotal experience is helpful and yet not definitive, right? I mean, and so we don't know how effective they are or they're not. But I kind of would be inclined to say that they should be looked at and considered for a contract for DFTA support, because DFTA then can decide whether, whether they merit it. But we could certainly encourage more senior support. We also had a request for better data on our senior residents.
I'll tell you one thing that would be super helpful, but I have no idea if anybody does this. So we've recently had a couple of situations with our seniors in the building. One passed away, one broke her hip and couldn't move. To have an emergency contact for folks would be so amazing.
That isn't 911, you mean?
No, like a family member.
Oh.
Like, who do you contact if the police are called, or if somebody, if somebody falls down the stairs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how we get at that issue. It's a good question. Okay. Better data on our senior residents. I mean, I should actually, yeah, okay. Retroactive contracts, we wrote about that. I think we should let that go. It's a citywide issue. We've advocated for it, and I think that's enough. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. Healthcare. I continue to say that we need a community health assessment, and I will continue to say it until we get one. I feel that that is important.
Agreed.
And I would like someone to spend the $100,000 it costs to have one made. So, all right, I'm going to keep that in there. We also put in 2 other items, which are sort of a little bit more granular. One was inter-system collaboration, which we've heard has improved, which means that basically if you're an LHGV and you get transferred and you want to go to NYU because that's your hospital, are you going to have to go through triage all again? Or is there going to be collaboration between health institutions to facilitate that for, all right.
There
so
isn't one.
So we'll keep that in there.
Yes,
I think people might, it doesn't have budgetary implications really, but I think it should be in our statement of needs.
It could go towards the requirements, the state requirements for interoperability.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we should have it. I don't think it has budgetary implications for us. You know, I don't think it's a request, but I think, and also the other thing, which I don't know, Wayne might find annoying. If you want to find out how well the offsite emergency department is going and you want to go to the Joint Commission to see what the rating is, it is not separated from.
You know, the Joint Commission, their rating system is so poor. We're accredited by the Joint Commission, and let me tell you, they just need a whole revamp.
So, okay. So I don't know is there anyone else that monitors the performance of hospitals? What's system?
Medicare, CMS, maybe.
Okay. What's CMS?
The
That's
Centers
Medicare and
for
Medicaid.
Medicaid and Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, I just think my guess is that in all of these entities, Lenox Hill does not regard the emergency department as a separate facility. And so we have no way of keeping tabs on whether this emergency department continues to work well because we don't have any separate monitoring. Wayne?
Well, let me poke in for a second.
Yeah.
So we do, as far as the Joint Commission goes, we do get, we don't get accredited separately, but we do get, the Joint Commission comes in and does their own auditing of Lenox South Greenwich Village. For like a day, they do Lenox Hill Hospital for 2 or 3 days. And because we're under the same, I think it's Article 28, I'm not totally sure, we get combined.
Right. Okay. So I think that would be the request, is that because, I mean, so what I'm hearing you say is that they audit you separately, but the results are all part of one Article 28 or one entity. And that's
right. If we get dinged, then that it will show up in the audit somewhere.
If you get dinged as opposed to the Lenox Hill emergency.
Yeah, but for example, Wayne, when they do the audit, right, and they give you, you know, they do tracking, right? They do tracer,
balloon,
right, for all of your processes and your services. Whatever needs to be corrected is not separately published, is it? It all appears consolidated.
I think they give you things that need to be corrected by site. I don't know what gets published publicly.
Okay, well, I think since we're all confused about this, I think it bears repeating. Because our concern, of course, is that if it ever were to happen that this facility were going down the tubes and there were cockroaches coming out of the, the sinks, would we know? And
I would have to say that, again, this is just personal experience. It is an amazing facility. It is incredibly efficient and well run. On the other hand, it has limitations because it's not meant to be a full service facility. And so the amount of time you're allowed to stay there is just so brief. It's even shorter than typical hospitals. So that's the limitation that we run into in the neighborhood is how do you know, what's the gap in providing
Well, that's why,
service?
yeah, that's why we really want that health assessment, because we recognize that this is a new model. This could be a hugely successful and efficient model. You know, we're the first ones in Manhattan. And it could be a wonderful model citywide, or it could be a terrible model. We have no real way of knowing. I agree. I think it seems like a terrific place. Every time I've been there, I've had a wonderful experience, but that's just our experience. I mean, I think that, and that's just now, you know, like who knows what will happen in 20 years. So I think that asking for a separate publishing of performance indicators will never
Maybe
get it.
it's not even on the performance of Lenox Hill or of Lenox Healthplex. It's really a question of what needs are not being met between the outlying hospitals and the provision of Lenox Healthplex.
Right.
What areas are not provided for in the community? That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's the health assessment, which I think we should still continue to clamor for. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the Northern Dispensary just opened. There was a ribbon cutting today, very exciting. God's love.
How was it? How did it look?
Well, it's interesting. I've been walking by there for a long time, and I'm like, when are they going to start working on it? And it's almost finished, actually. They're using it for as offices for client services. So it's really just offices. It's not a clinic or anything like that. But it's actually a wonderful thing that the Gottlieb, the Gottlieb company, which are huge landowners in our district, are giving this a lot of support. They're renting it for a nominal fee. They've paid for the renovation and all this kind of stuff. We've never had God's Love We Deliver in to talk to us. So we're going to do that either in October or November. And I'm not sure what we should say about it in our districts, in our statement of needs, but I think we should make some mention about it. I think it seems to me like a very positive development. If you're not familiar with that building, it's a beautiful building in a beautiful space. Everyone would have loved to have it. It would have been, you know, hotel, mansion, a million other wonderful uses. It has this restriction on the deed that said it has to be used for healthcare, and that was always a stumbling block for a lot of people. But this actually solves the problem. Okay, moving on to the door. I don't know the status of the Doors outreach program. They traditionally conducted outreach, especially on the piers, to try to bring kids into services. I don't know where that stands. I can check with them, but I think whatever, some way we want to make some mention of the Door and supporting the Door. They're a really important youth services organization.
Didn't they come speak to us at some point?
They have spoken to us a couple of times. Yeah, they have. And they've gone through some leadership changes, and we've always met with them.
Right.
And we should probably do so again this year. Their clientele is mostly actually not residents from our district, but it doesn't matter. They're still a very important citywide service provider. And apparently, Amy Brenner used to work with them. They went through periods where they were really in the red. A lot of their work is contract, but a lot of their work is done through donors. Is paid for by donorship. I want to move on to tenants. I don't know what to do about tenants. So Mobilization for Justice, as you guys know, was given a 10-year contract when the Rudin organization built Greenwich Mews. Part of the mitigation was that they would pay for free representation in case of tenant harassment and evictions. That contract is almost over, and we had them in. Adam, you chaired that meeting. It was my impression that they just have not had a huge amount of demand and don't necessarily need to be pushed to have another contract, but you tell me what you think.
I mean, my takeaway was like they seemed open to additional funding. I think they're continuing to offer services to residents of Community District 2. However, there might not be dedicated space within the community district. So if we're comfortable.
What do you mean by dedicated space for what?
Like there's not like a booth set up.
Oh, they're
down
working out of Greenwich House, but
right.
it's my impression that not a lot of people were coming to them.
That's correct. So I think, I think, they were certainly open to additional funding, but I think there's not a substantial risk that they would not be able to provide services to residents who have concerns, as long as those residents are able to, pick up the phone, which I don't think is that big of a barrier.
I would be of the inclination to lose them from the District of Needs, and from a budget request.
But I'm curious what others think.
Yeah, of course I am too. Anybody else? Oh, a lot of blank faces. Okay. All right. Homelessness. I'm sorry, it's 8 o'clock. We don't have that much more to go. Homelessness. In the last one, we said we support the opening of Paul's Place.
Hey, Will, can you make it a little bigger on the screen?
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting a little old.
You know what you can do, Ritu, also is you can slide that bar over so that you don't see any of the faces or very few of the faces.
It's still, this is good.
All right, good.
Sorry, give me a second.
This is good, Will.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get back. Good. Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
So in the last one, we supported the opening that at that time was imminent of Paul's Place. And we also expressed concern that these services not come at the cost of quality of life to area residents. I think that's a valid position, and unless anyone wants to change it, I would keep that in. CB2 also supported the opening of the shelter on West 11th Street. And I would keep that in there, even though it's been enjoined. Currently, there's a lawsuit against it. West Hab, I would keep what we wrote about that, which is we want to make sure that West Hab is going to live up to the promises it's made to the community. Right now, West Hab is really lagging on a lot of things.
Where does that stand, Susanna? We haven't heard about that one.
Yeah, well, here's it stands that I don't know. That's what it stands, and that I've reached out to them. And in fairness, over the summer we were given a number of dates when we might be able to go tour some of their facilities. I dropped that because I've had an emergency in my family and I've been dealing with that. I emailed them yesterday and have not heard back. I want to reopen this. I want to reopen when we can come and visit, and also when are they coming back to us. At the last meeting we had with them, they said that they would begin community engagement over the summer. That did not happen, at least not according to Christopher Marte's office. And they are sort of famously, in my regard, just they're not that responsive. So I don't know where that stands. And I feel also that I don't think that I think that between Marte's office and them, we're not getting the kind of community engagement that we got on Paul's Place.
Oh.
And I think that community engagement, I mean, it sounds mamby-pamby, but actually it really makes a difference.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong place and it closed out. So I'll go back to it.
So I think that personally, I mean, I'm talking, but you guys talk and you don't, interrupt me and talk over me. I'm just.
So, Susanna, just one thought I had. I mean, as from what we heard, I think today, clearly there's high demand for this style of safe haven shelter. I mean, should we ask, for some sort of analysis or metrics or something at a certain point? And I assume they're going to say that there's high demand and that it's I'm hoping it's going to be very successful. It seems like it already is. And then to use that to sort of determine whether we should be asking for additional shelters of this model. So I'm not really sure the best like sort of procedure for that, but it seems like maybe at some point we would want to review like what the results are, how they're judging it, how they're measuring it. And again, if it's very successful, and it seems to me like it will be, clearly there's need for a lot more of this type of thing. So I don't know if there's a way to address that, but that's a thought I have.
I think it's something that we can certainly articulate. I mean, it's a little awkward for us since we just voted against one of these, but that doesn't mean we can't advocate for it.
Oh, I definitely think we should advocate for it. And we didn't vote against it because of the model. We voted against it because of the impact on the community, a very different thing, but doesn't stop us from advocating for another thing like this.
I'll try to finesse the business about Chinatown and the feeling that it was the wrong location. And that I think it's fair to say that there was a lack of confidence that a fair share analysis would actually be fair.
Right.
Okay. Will, I think that the safe haven, I think we should certainly say something about the safe haven model. I mean, we already know, you know, all kinds of entities are supporting the increase of safe havens. So we won't be the first voice there, you know, or a unique voice at all. And of course, shelters in our district are always quite tricky because property is very expensive and neighbors are well funded. And we've actually, whatever, it's not so easy to place a shelter in CB2. It's just not. It's not easy to place a shelter in CB2.
Yeah, I think if we have some sort of measurable metric that we can go after a year or two or whatever and say, you know, this has been a huge success by all of these metrics. Yeah, like I think we probably know that this is a model that works, but it makes an easier sell to the community. I think to have more of this, if you can point to some hard metrics.
How about if we add to our business about Paul's Place the hope and expectation that you know, a year of operation will reveal metrics that will, you know, that will measure the success of this as a model for here. Would that be good for you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What about the migrants? I mean, they seem to brush off the fact that they said, well, we're not responsible for them. But
so the migrants, I actually talked to Leilani about this a couple of days ago. So two things. I sent out an email earlier tonight that they're probably going to come back to us at the end of October, like DHS, like the agenda item will be just DHS, and we'll just talk to them about a bunch of different things. One of them is the migrant crisis. What Leilani told me over the phone was that actually, as they said tonight, it's not really being run through DHS. It's like it's a major crisis, and it's being run through Office of Immigration Affairs, Emergency Management, and the Mayor's office, and that they don't know very much about it. So I didn't get the feeling. I think it felt like they were brushing it off, but I think actually they just don't have as much information as we would like. So I think that that's something to zero in on for October, if that's okay with you.
Well, I think we could say something in our report that we also are very concerned about this, and we would like to find out more about who's responsible and what are their plans. I mean, something. I do think it's a big social services crisis.
Absolutely. I also think that what we should be saying in our district, in our statement of needs, is we would like opportunities to support this population.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because obviously it's a moving target. I mean, you know, next October, it could be a whole different scenario, but this is a current crisis. All right, substance treatment. Apparently, I'm not supposed to use substance abuse treatment, but just substance treatment. I think the Washington Square Park outreach thing is something that we should support. So just as a recap, Gail Brewer started this thing where she asked all these organizations to blanket Washington Square Park in shifts, so that there was always some form of social service outreach in the park. And that was like access to homeless people, for substance treatment, there were all different kinds of harm reduction. There were different organizations doing this. Most of them, my understanding is, were doing it on their own dollar. They were just doing it with their existing resources. Greenwich House was playing the operational role. They sort of managed it. But the question for me is, like, it sounds really nice, but does it actually work? It's nice to have people out there offering substance treatment to people who are using drugs, but many people who are using drugs do not want that. And so it may just be a waste of time and money. So one of the things that happened, the program, which was a pilot program, was also supposed to collect data on impact and was not able to do so. So the program operated and people felt anecdotally that it was kind of helpful and a promising model, but it has not gotten the kind of scrutiny that a program evaluation would provide. So I would be inclined to support it again, and to say, we would also like the support to contain an element of accountability and record keeping or data production or something like that. Yes, no?
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else, anybody? I'm sorry, I know it sounds so boring, but it is the thing we have to do.
For the Washington Square Park portion, Susanna,
Yeah.
can we indicate Washington Square Park and the surrounding blocks?
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because that's a complaint we hear a lot, right? You kick them out of the park, and they're doing, they're shooting up on Waverly Place.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's such a hard thing. Have you
And
guys?
West Fourth and the West Fourth stop too. It's sort of
Yeah.
can move over there, just down those side streets over towards the West Fourth stop.
And into the subway station. Eric Watcher had a walk through the subway station. Have you guys heard that some of the nearby streets have hired security teams?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Washington Place, right? Did.
I know. I just ran into a friend who lives on 9th Street, and she said that they're doing it. So I don't know if it's all part of one effort or if it's different efforts. But
9th and what?
She's between 5th and 6th.
Okay.
Right.
My old block, 10th between 5th and 6th. I know the block associations and some of the owners just hired, not even the block associations, the owners on that block just hired security without even really telling anyone.
I can't blame them. I mean, I don't know.
But the issue there is, can it be sustained over time? It is very costly for local block associations to maintain security.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously, no one should have to do that, right? I mean, it smacks of, affluent people vigilantism, which is not nice, although I don't think that they're guilty of that, but it doesn't look good. And also you should be able to rely on your city's, police department and social services to take care of it. You should not have to be paying for that by yourself. So I don't blame them. I just think it's indicative of a difficult moment in the city.
Yeah, it does point out that there's a real issue there.
Yeah, and I don't know what the root of it is. Everyone's like, oh, there's so many more homeless people now. I don't know that that's really true, or they're more visible, or like, why are the junkies all in Washington Square Park? Where were they before? It's like, is there anything else we feel we should be saying about our community? Do we need to talk about, for example, I think we might want to say something about mental health and homelessness, mental health services. That seems to be that seems to underlie a lot of what we're talking
Can
about.
we find out who covers our area for crisis services, for like frontline crisis service? So if you have somebody that is suicidal, you know, who do they, besides the 988 number, is there?
988.
Sorry.
I don't know what 988 is.
Oh, so starting September 6th or something, instead of calling 911 when you have a mental health crisis, you can dial 988.
Oh, no.
And it's a national number that has been rolled out. It's connected depending on, so unfortunately, it's based on the area code that you are calling from. So if I happen to be in Kansas and I'm calling from my mobile and it's a 917 or a 212 number, they're going to connect me with a therapist or a counselor or a social worker in New York, in New York, as opposed to Kansas, if I was living there with the 212 number.
I see.
So they connect you to a therapist, to a crisis counselor based on your area code.
So,
and they try to, it's not 100%. This is what they try to do. So you have someone that you can continue services with, and that may know your geographic area. So that's the 988 number. But there are specific nonprofits, probably just one or two, that actually send out kind of emergency personnel.
And that's not the Manhattan Outreach Team?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
And so, you know, do we want to say that we want to, you know, support their services?
Right. Well, maybe what we could say, even without knowing how that actually gets, the responsibilities get distributed, we can certainly say that we have seen what appears to be an increase, or at least an ongoing issue with people on the street who appear to have a mental illness, whether they're homeless or not, we don't know, but we do have the impression that there are a lot of people out there in need of mental health services, and the city should be paying attention to them. I don't know, you know, I mean, it's the district, you know, it's a statement of needs. It's not, we're not asking for specific money, or, you know, we're not going to a specific agency, but it's certainly not a bad, I mean, we have a lot of visitors to our district, and we have a lot of places where people linger throughout the day. We are observing that there are a lot of people who seem to be aimless, or have nowhere to go, or seem to be deranged. I don't know, that's not the right word, but seem to have mental health issues.
You know, back in the day before the High Line, there used to be 500 kids that slept on that bridge. You know, kids that had left home, underage, basically minors. And so they've got to go somewhere, right? And where do they go? And I think we find pockets of that in problem areas where they're not safe and others aren't safe.
Right. Yeah. Well, which is why we want to support things like the door. All right. So what is my plan? My plan is over the next week or so to look over the statement of needs that we did last year and to revise our section, and I'll share that with you guys and ask you guys to look at it. There is the executive committee meets before the next full board meeting and hashes out the priority budget requests. I think the one thing that we have identified wanting to support is ongoing outreach in Washington Square Park and that program. I have not heard other, unless I'm forgetting something, I haven't heard other budget priority requests come out of this committee. And if anything comes out of it, holler. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Will.
Thanks to all of you for being
Bye.
here tonight.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.